There are 3 toothbrushes in our bathroom. Mine, hers, and one bright blue one she claims to use for cleaning the grout, except it's always dry and mini fresh. That morning, I noticed it was wet, sitting on the sink like it had just finished brushing someone's secrets. I remember staring at it, toothbrush still in my mouth, foam pooling at the corner of my lips like a rabid dog trying not to scream. That's the funny thing about betrayal. It doesn't kick in like a heart attack. It seeps in like a gas leak, subtle enough to make you second-guess your sanity while it slowly poisons everything you thought was solid. The morning routine was clockwork. I left the house at 6:45 a.m. sharp for my run. Same route, same pace, same old headphones held together with duct tape and loyalty. She never stirred before 7:30. That day, I forgot my water bottle and circled back 15 minutes later. I came through the garage door quietly, the kind of quiet you use when you want to catch someone doing something they shouldn't. What I heard wasn't moaning or whispers or the unmistakable creak of our old bed frame. It was worse. It was silence, too perfect, too thick. I crept up the stairs and heard the soft thump of a phone being hastily put down, like guilt-pressed pause. When I walked in, she was already dressed, makeup on, hair done, something that usually happened after coffee and a cigarette in her robe while watching true crime. She looked at me like I was the one who'd interrupted something sacred. "Back already?" she asked, voice too high, too sweet. There was a smear of lipstick on her mug, which would have been normal except it was the travel mug she only used for the office, and it was Friday. She always worked from home on Fridays. "You going somewhere?" I asked, feigning indifference while scanning the room like a crime scene. "Just had a craving for that coffee from the shop near my building," she smiled, like caffeine was a good enough reason to break 3 years of routine. She kissed my cheek and walked out before I could respond, and that's when I noticed her phone. She never forgot her phone. If she were a soldier, that thing would be her rifle. I didn't touch it. I just looked. The screen was still lit, open on a text from someone saved as Babe, work laptop computer. The last message said, "Can't wait for Monday." Or maybe sooner. No emojis, no jokes, just raw implication. My hands didn't shake. My chest didn't tighten. I was calm, cold, mechanical. Like something inside had shut off, or maybe finally turned on. I took a screenshot, sent it to myself, then locked the phone and placed it back exactly where she left it. By the time she got back with her overpriced caramel abomination, I was back in the garage, pretending to oil my bike chain and humming like nothing was wrong. She didn't notice anything. That was her mistake. Over the next week, I played dumb. I asked about her work husband, a term she used half-jokingly when describing Eric, the guy from accounting who always brought her sushi and compliments. "Eric's harmless," she laughed. "He's gay." Funny. Nothing about those texts felt like a man picking out throw pillows. I started my reconnaissance. I didn't tail her, didn't hack into anything. I just asked questions. About the office. About Eric. About things she didn't realize I remembered. Patterns, inconsistencies, red flags. She said she hated sushi. She said Eric was married. She said she'd never go back to the office on a Friday again. So I reached out to Eric. Found him on LinkedIn, added him with a message about possibly collaborating on a finance project. He accepted within an hour. Turned out, Eric wasn't gay. He wasn't married. He was newly single and, more importantly, he was just as suspicious of her as I was. "She flirts a lot," he said during our first call. Honestly, I thought she was playing me. I told him I needed his help. I told him I wanted to see if she'd crossed the line. He didn't hesitate. We planned it like a sting operation. He texted her late Friday night, after a fake happy hour, saying he'd had one too many and couldn't stop thinking about her. She'd been drinking. She always had wine Fridays when I was at the gym. I made sure I wasn't there. I made sure the house was quiet. She replied in less than 5 minutes, "I think about you too." I just didn't want to mess things up. My stomach turned, not from heartbreak, but from the sheer velocity of her willingness. I watched it all unfold through the mirrored screen I had set up in the home office. Eric suggested a call, just to talk. She agreed. She sat on our bed, hair down, eyes gleaming, wearing the hoodie I bought her last Christmas. My hoodie. When the video call connected, she smiled into the camera like a woman who'd just been handed a secret she'd waited years for. "I've wanted to tell you for so long," she began. That's when Eric said, "Yeah? Well, why don't you tell him?" And the screen split. Her smile froze. My face appeared next to Eric's, perfectly still, perfectly composed. No yelling. No accusations. Just a nod. A confirmation. And that was the first break. Our life looked good from the outside, like one of those polished Instagram couples that laugh too loudly in coffee shops and post photos in matching outfits from pumpkin patches. I had a good job, steady hours, made enough to cover the mortgage and give her the freedom to chase her passion projects, which these days meant vaguely dabbling in wellness and content creation, though I never really saw the content. She used to show me everything: her sketches, her bullet journal layouts, even her half-baked ideas for opening an online boutique. But slowly, that window started to close. Not slammed shut, just drawn inward. One day I realized I hadn't been invited into any of her new plans in months. She still kissed me goodnight, still said, "Love you," as easily as ordering takeout, but it had that hollow ring of something rehearsed, like a prayer she no longer believed in. Her eyes used to follow me when I entered the room. Now, they stayed glued to her phone or some glowing meditation app humming in the background. She started saying things like, "I just need to realign myself," or "I'm on this new journey," like she was ascending and I was standing still. At first, I thought it was just a phase. Everyone has off days, stressful weeks, patches where passion thins. But then the language changed. She started talking about boundaries. She said she needed more space to grow. "Not from me," she added quickly. "It's not you. I just need to get back in touch with myself." That would have meant something if she hadn't also started locking her phone, putting her laptop to sleep every time I walked in, and taking calls in the backyard with headphones buried so deep it looked like she was training for covert ops. The first real jolt hit me when I tried to tag her in a post from a friend's wedding. We were smiling, holding hands, perfect lighting, and her account had suddenly gone private. Not only that, I couldn't even see her profile anymore. "Oh," she said when I asked about it later, pretending to scroll through something deeply important. "I just cleaned up my social media. It's nothing personal. Just trying to keep things less cluttered." But that didn't explain why I wasn't just unfollowed. I was blocked. I still made breakfast. Still packed her snacks when she had a studio day. Still bought her flowers on random Thursdays because that's what she said made her feel appreciated. She thanked me, smiled that soft smile she gave waiters and distant relatives, but it never quite reached her eyes. Her excitement wasn't gone, just redirected. She came home with stories, energy, ideas, but none of them included me. She was thinking of starting a retreat series with some guy named Nathan, who ran a mindfulness podcast. She showed me a picture once. He looked like a self-proclaimed guru with a beard that screamed, "I do ayahuasca in the desert." Still, I nodded, encouraged her. I wanted to believe this was just her rediscovering herself. Maybe I'd been boring. Maybe I'd gone too routine. But when I checked her calendar one day to find an overnight event scheduled during a week, she told me she'd be slammed with deadlines, something cracked. Just a hairline fracture. I didn't accuse. I just stared at the entry, Healing Circle Retreat, private location. No address. No contact. Just a 48-hour block of nothingness. Her wardrobe changed. Slowly. Softer fabrics. Lower necklines. Shoes I hadn't seen in years. She bought new lingerie, but I only noticed it once, in the hamper, never on her. There was a perfume I didn't recognize, one that didn't smell like her usual citrus and lavender, but something darker, muskier. It lingered in the car sometimes when she claimed she'd only gone grocery shopping. Once, I found a receipt in the backseat, 2 glasses of Pinot Noir and a charcuterie board at a wine bar she swore she hated. She brushed it off. "Oh, that must have been from lunch with Clara. You remember Clara, right?" I nodded, but I knew Clara had moved to Portland 2 months ago. She started talking about moving casually, hypothetically. Wouldn't it be nice to just live somewhere by the ocean, wake up to waves, start fresh? The first time she said it, I laughed. The third time, I didn't. One night, she came to bed late. I pretended to be asleep, but I could feel the glow of her phone screen, hear the soft tapping of her fingers, and then a giggle. A quiet, dangerous sound I hadn't heard in over a year. Not the laugh she gave me when I cracked a joke. No, this one was different. Intimate. Reserved. It didn't belong in our bedroom. Still, I waited. I made excuses. Maybe she was just going through something. Maybe it was just stress, burnout, midlife confusion. I told myself that until it stopped working. Until the space she needed turned into a wall, and the woman I used to wake up next to became a stranger who kept herself just close enough to feel familiar but distant enough to be unknowable. I could feel the betrayal breathing beneath the surface of her every word, like static under a perfect song. But I didn't confront her. Not yet. Because I needed to be sure. I needed to catch it alive. And I knew, deep down, that the truth wasn't going to be spoken. It was going to be exposed. It was a Tuesday afternoon, the kind of day so uneventful it should have passed without memory, but instead, it carved itself into my skull. She was working from home, or so she said. Laptop on the dining table, wireless headphones snug in her ears, nodding along to what looked like a Zoom meeting. I came home early, earlier than I told her I would. No warning, no reason, just a gut pull. She didn't hear me come in, didn't see me pause in the hallway, didn't realize the mirror on the hutch reflected the full view of her screen. It wasn't Zoom. It was FaceTime. And it wasn't work. He was smiling, this man I'd never seen before, unshaven in that calculated, rugged way, shirtless, sitting in what looked like a hotel room. "I'm wearing it," she whispered, grinning like a teenager sneaking out of her parents' house. "You just can't see it?" Yet. My spine didn't stiffen. My hands didn't clench. I didn't even blink. It was like someone reached inside me and flipped a switch from human to algorithm. I stepped backward, slowly, soundlessly, and walked back out the front door without her ever knowing I was home. I drove to the gas station, not because I needed gas, but because I needed to breathe somewhere that didn't have her scent. I sat in the car and stared at the steering wheel like it might explain something, like maybe I'd missed a page in the manual that said this was where trust goes to die. That was the moment. Not the moment she lied, not the flirtations, not even the hidden phone or the secretive retreats. This, her speaking to him in our home, in her softest voice, using that dangerous, intimate tone reserved for lovers, this was the moment the crack in my foundation didn't widen. It collapsed. I didn't feel heartbreak. I felt strategy. My brain started cataloging everything she ever said, every inconsistency, every late return, every "I'm just tired" and "you're imagining things." I thought about the toothbrush again, the receipts, the perfume, the locked screens. I thought about the time she said, "You're so lucky I chose you," and how I smiled, not realizing I was being mocked. It wasn't rage, it was precision. I didn't scream. I didn't confront. I watched the door to our house the way a hunter watches a burrow. I thought about the face of the man on her screen. How relaxed he looked. How unaware. How disposable. And then I thought, she thinks I'm too blind to see it. She thinks I'm too soft-tacked on it. That was her fatal mistake. I drove home 20 minutes later, made noise when I came in this time. She shut her laptop so fast I could have sworn it was hot to the touch. I kissed her cheek and asked, "Long meeting?" She nodded. "Exhausting," she said, reaching for her tea. Her fingers trembled just slightly, like the lie was heavier than she expected it to be. And still, I said nothing. Just smiled. I asked if she wanted Thai food tonight. She said yes. Said I was sweet. Said she didn't deserve me. She was right. She didn't. And now, I wasn't just her husband anymore. I was the architect of her downfall, and she didn't even know it yet. I became invisible by choice, a ghost in my own home, and she had no idea. That's the part that fascinated me most, how someone could lie so confidently while standing in front of someone who had already begun to dismantle their reality, piece by piece. I started small, subtle, just enough to keep my scent off the wind. First, I told her I had to work late on Tuesdays and Thursdays, meetings with an international client. In truth, I parked my car 4 blocks down and walked back home, slipped through the side entrance, and listened. Always listening. She'd paced the house on speakerphone, voice lifted in tones she never used with me, laughter that sounded practiced, like she was performing for someone who still believed in her charm. I recorded everything through a spare phone hidden in the laundry basket. No one ever does laundry in this house unless I start it. On the first Thursday, she told him she dreamed about him. On the second, she said she missed the way he tasted. My stomach churned, but my face never changed. When I came back through the front door an hour later, she greeted me in her pajamas with fake yawns and a kiss that reeked of peppermint gum. I kissed her back like nothing was wrong. The next step was surveillance. I didn't have access to her phone, but I didn't need it. I bought a second smartwatch and synced it to our shared Apple ID, one she forgot she ever set up when I gave her her first phone 5 years ago. I tucked the watch into her gym bag, knowing she never checked that pouch. It gave me GPS pings every 10 minutes. That Friday, she told me she was visiting her cousin across town to help her organize a garage sale. The watch told me she spent the afternoon at a boutique hotel 11 miles in the other direction. Room 403. I verified it by calling the front desk, posing as a delivery driver trying to drop off flowers. I asked, sweetly, "Could you confirm the room number for Ms. Caldwell?" They said, "Oh yes, she just checked in." Caldwell. Her mother's maiden name. Clever. Sloppy. That night, I asked her how the sale went. She spun a ridiculous story about old lamps and dusty vinyl records. I asked what her cousin's dog's name was again, just to watch her freeze for a quarter second before blurting Milo. Wrong. It was Winston. I smiled, nodded, said I was thinking of getting a dog. The next move was financial. She had her own account, but we shared a credit card for groceries, travel, things that didn't need secrets. I reviewed the statements like a forensic accountant on a deadline. Found charges for restaurants I'd never been to, bars on nights I knew she was exhausted from yoga, and most tellingly, an Airbnb 3 towns over, booked twice in 1 month. Both times were days she claimed to be attending business seminars. I booked the same Airbnb under a fake name and discovered the guestbook entries. Hers was written in cursive, thanking the host for the privacy and peace to reconnect with someone special. My jaw didn't clench. My heart didn't race. I simply took a photo and slid the book back into place. Then came the social strategy. I never asked her friends anything that would have tipped my hand. Instead, I reached out to the one person who despised her enough to help me burn her life to the ground if given the chance, her former best friend, Rachel. They'd had a falling out over some alleged betrayal 2 years ago. Turns out the betrayal was that Rachel told her fiancé about something my wife did during a bachelorette trip in Cabo, something involving another man and a locked bathroom door. I asked Rachel to message her from a new number, pretending to be an old hookup from that same trip. Hey, been thinking about you. Want to pick up where we left off? My wife replied in less than 10 minutes, can't right now. Complicated. But I miss it. I took a screenshot of that too. I was building a folder, not just for evidence, but for precision. The kind of folder you show someone when you want to end their reality with no room left for lies. Finally, I planted a question. One I knew would force her to lie. I told her I had a friend who thought his wife was cheating, and I asked her, casually, if you were going to cheat, how would you hide it? She laughed, nervous, said, that's a horrible question. But then she answered, burner phones, private Venmo, using cash, never leaving a trace. I nodded slowly, like I was impressed by her creativity. That's terrifyingly detailed, I said. She smirked and kissed my cheek. Just hypothetical, she whispered. I didn't say a word. By now, I knew the man's name, knew where he worked, where he lived, and that he thought she was single. He had no idea who I was. That would change, but not yet. I wasn't ready to strike. I was still watching, still studying, like a shadow at her heels. Every time she laughed too loudly, dressed too nicely, smiled at her phone a little too long, I was there. Right there. And she still thought she was winning. That's the part that made it fun. It happened at a wine tasting, of all places, one of those overpriced, pretentious events she insisted we attend so she could network with emotionally evolved people, which I'd come to learn was code for men who bought into her spiritual goddess persona. She wore a black dress I hadn't seen before, skin-tight, a neckline that was more plunge than suggestion, and heels that said she wanted to be followed. I played my role well, hand at the small of her back, polite conversation, the supportive husband. We sat at a circular table under dim golden chandeliers, surrounded by laughing couples and clinking glasses. She was glowing, leaning into my shoulder like nothing in the world could ever crack our porcelain life. Then the host announced a surprise segment, guest-submitted photo stories projected on a side screen, to celebrate love and connection. She clapped, thrilled. The lights dimmed further. The first few slides were exactly what you'd expect. Couples hiking, babies, proposals, cheesy captions. Then came the fifth slide. A photo taken from outside a car window. Her, very clearly her, straddling a man's lap in the driver's seat of a black Audi, the timestamp glaring in the corner like a confession. Last Friday, 11:32 p.m. Her laughter caught in her throat. A few people gasped. One woman whispered, "Is that?" She turned to look at me, eyes wide, lips parting. "That's not," she started, but I raised one finger, just slightly, and she froze. The next photo. Her, same dress, sitting at the edge of a hotel bed, looking up at someone just out of frame with the kind of hunger she used to reserve for our anniversary nights. The room around us was silent now. Even the host looked confused. I stood, picked up my glass of wine, and said calmly, "You told me you were at your sister's that night." She was in Chicago. She blinked rapidly. "It's not what it looks like. We were just talking. He was going through something." I tilted my head. "With his belt off?" She flinched, then scoffed. "Fine. We kissed. Once. That's all. You've been distant." I didn't know if we were still connected. I took a slow sip, letting the tension marinate. You planned the hotel a week in advance. You packed lingerie. You turned off your location sharing. You weren't confused. You were committed. Her eyes narrowed, mouth tightening. You never listened to me. You never really see me. I needed to feel alive again. I needed to be wanted. I nodded slowly. So you let someone else between your legs, because I didn't tell you how pretty you were while you were busy realigning. She hissed, "Don't you dare patronize me. You think you're so righteous. Always watching, always judging. What kind of man spies on his own wife? The kind that married a professional liar," I said, never raising my voice. "The kind that noticed the second you stopped kissing with your eyes open." Her jaw clenched, face flushing. "You've been following me? Recording me? What is wrong with you?" "What's wrong with me?" I repeated quietly. "You bring another man into my life, into our bed, and you ask what's wrong with me." She rolled her eyes, that mask of mockery returning. "You're pathetic. You really think this little show makes you powerful? You're just bitter. Small." I leaned forward, placing the wine glass down gently. "No," I said. "I'm precise. There's a difference." She opened her mouth, probably to hurl one more insult, but then she saw something in my face, something flat, cold, unreadable. That's when the fear arrived, late but undeniable. Her eyes darted to the people around us, who were now avoiding eye contact like this was a car crash they regretted slowing down to witness. "Can we talk about this in private?" she asked, voice softening. "Please." I stepped back, hands in my pockets, scanning the room. "What part would you like to discuss privately? The betrayal? The deceit? Or the fact that you've built an entire identity on spiritual awakening while spreading your legs for someone who thinks therapy is a scam?" Her hand twitched, as if she was about to slap me, but stopped halfway. She knew it wouldn't land. Not in front of this many witnesses. Not with the weight of those images still floating behind her like a halo of rot. The host awkwardly tried to shift to the next slide, some poor couple's engagement in Yosemite, but the room had already left that world behind. This was the real event now. Her breath was shallow, lips trembling slightly. "What are you going to do?" she whispered. "I'm not sure yet," I said truthfully. "I haven't decided how deep I want the knife to go." And I stood there, unmoving, letting her drown in the silence she once filled with excuses. She came at me like a storm without warning, raw, furious, already unraveling by the time the door to our house shut behind us. Her heels clicked like a metronome of anger across the floor as she spun on me, eyes bloodshot, lips twisted, hands clawing at air like she was trying to gather pieces of herself before I burned the rest. "You humiliated me," she snarled, as if the part where she cheated had somehow become secondary to the part where I let the world see. "You didn't have to do it like that. We could have talked. We could have worked through it." I said nothing, just dropped my keys on the counter and started removing my watch, slow and steady, like I was winding down from a long day of something beneath her comprehension. "Say something, damn it," she screamed, stepping closer, her breath hot and shaking. "You smothered me. You acted like everything was fine while I was dying inside." Still, I stayed silent, because I had no interest in validating a monologue written in cowardice. "What do you want me to say?" she asked, voice cracking. "That I'm sorry? That I made a mistake? Is that what you want to hear?" I looked at her then, really looked, and it was like seeing a painting of someone I used to love that had been left out in the rain. Faded, warped, pathetic. "No," I said. "I want you to shut up." She flinched, staggered back a step, blinking like I'd slapped her. "You don't mean that," she whispered. "You love me. You always have." I nodded once. "I did. Before I realized you were built entirely out of excuses and desperation." Her mouth opened, but no words came. So she turned to rage instead. "You were boring," she spat. "Predictable. Everything was always about your schedule, your rules, your damn logic. I needed to feel alive again. I needed a real man." I tilted my head, studying her like a specimen behind glass. "Then why'd you lie?" I asked. "If he was so real, why did you still crawl into my bed every night and pretend you weren't filthy with someone else's sweat?" She slapped the counter hard, making a candle tip over. "Because I wanted to love you," she shouted, veins rising in her neck. I tried. "You think it was easy waking up every day next to someone who never truly saw me?" I shrugged. "No one sees a shadow," I said calmly. "And that's all you ever were, just good lighting and timing." Her hands were shaking now, jaw clenched so hard I thought she might crack a molar. "You're enjoying this," she said bitterly. "You're just like your father. Cold. Empty. Always needing control." That made me smile, not because she was right, but because her desperation had finally hit rock bottom. "Projection won't save you," I said, "and neither will pity. You're not a victim. You're just predictable." She started pacing then, hands in her hair, muttering to herself like she was trying to rewrite the past with every breath. "This doesn't have to end ugly," she said. "We can fix this. We can go to therapy. I'll do better. I'll cut him off." You have no idea how confused I was, how hard it's been for me. "You weren't confused," I said coldly. "You were confident. Arrogant, even. That's what made you careless." Her face twisted, and she charged again, not physically, but with her last weapon, cruelty. "You're nothing special. You know that? You think you're some kind of mastermind? You're just a loser who couldn't even hold on to his wife." "I didn't lose you," I said flatly. "I released you. Like poison." She froze, mouth agape, eyes wide with something that looked very close to realization. That I wasn't fighting. That I wasn't begging. That I didn't care anymore. "You can't just walk away," she whispered. "You don't get to just decide I'm done." I raised my eyebrows. "You decided that months ago? I'm just giving your choice the ceremony it deserves." Her voice dropped to a whimper then, the collapse beginning in her throat. "But I don't want this," she said. "I don't want to lose you." I stepped past her, walking toward the hallway like I was done with a meeting. "You lost me when you stopped trying to deserve me." She staggered after me, hand brushing my sleeve. "Please. I'll do anything. I swear." I turned and looked at her one last time, with a gaze so empty of affection it could have been a stranger's. "No," I said. "You'll do exactly what you always do. Lie, cry, destroy. I just won't be here to clean it up anymore." And with that, I let her stand there in the silence she once filled with manipulation, alone with the echo of a man she no longer had the power to hurt. I didn't need to scream or slam doors or make a scene. Real vengeance isn't loud. It's quiet enough to hear the click of every trap snapping shut. While she spiraled in our bedroom, alternating between tears and rage, I was already executing the plan I'd been assembling for weeks, piece by precise piece. It started with the evidence. I cataloged everything: screenshots, call logs, GPS records, recordings of her conversations with him, images from the Airbnb guest books, the text from Rachel's fake number, even the photos from the wine tasting that started the avalanche. All stored on a secure external drive and backed up 3 different ways, including a cloud account she didn't know existed. I uploaded the folder to a private drive labeled Divorce Kit and set permissions for 1 lawyer, 1 therapist, and, cruelest of all, her father. Then I began phase 2, extraction. I opened a new personal account at a different bank under my own name and funneled my direct deposit there. The joint account stayed untouched, a honey trap to keep her thinking I hadn't moved yet. I made 2 discreet trips to a storage unit across town, one I'd reserved under an alias, moving all my valuable personal items, family heirlooms, important documents, anything irreplaceable. I rerouted all my mail to a P.O. box near my office. Next came the financial chokehold. I canceled the secondary credit cards linked to my name. I froze our home equity line before she could touch it. I removed her name from the car I paid for, using the title still in my drawer. I called the insurance company and had the policy rewritten. I transferred utilities into my name only and scheduled shutoffs for anything that was in hers. I changed passwords to every subscription, every cloud account, every device she once shared. Spotify, Netflix, even the damn digital thermostat. She'd wake up one morning freezing and clueless, and I'd be long gone. Then I called the lawyer I'd already met with in secret 2 weeks prior. We finalized the draft of the divorce papers, the one citing adultery with detailed attachments marked Exhibits A through F. I authorized the process server to deliver them exactly 1 hour before her women's empowerment workshop the following Saturday. Because nothing screams spiritual clarity like being served a notice for dissolution of marriage in front of your wellness tribe. That same morning, I scheduled an email to go out to her family, just the truth, nothing vindictive, with a polite note that said I would not be discussing it further. Her mother would call and cry. Her father would go silent. Her brother, the one who always secretly disliked her fake Zen nonsense, would probably raise a toast. I also prepared a letter for her employer, drafted with the guidance of a friend in HR, expressing concern over inappropriate behavior during company time with a non-employee, supported by time-stamped messages and calendar conflicts. I didn't send it yet. That would come later. Timing was everything. She thought I was sleeping on the couch out of spite. I was just staging the house. I photographed everything, logged every asset, took screenshots of appraisals and statements. I created a clean record of what existed before the storm hit. Then I moved on to reputation. I created a folder titled Her Truth with no commentary, just receipts. On the morning the papers were served, I posted a single, carefully worded message on social media. Sometimes, the people who speak the loudest about love are the ones who hide their betrayal best. I'm stepping away to rebuild, with clarity and without lies. I attached nothing else. But I unlocked the folder, publicly visible, to anyone curious enough to click. I didn't tag her. Didn't mention her name. I let curiosity and guilt do the work. Meanwhile, she kept talking, kept manipulating, telling friends we were working through things, posting affirmations about growth through hardship, trying to reclaim the narrative before it slipped out of her hands entirely. But it was already gone. She just didn't know it yet. I didn't reply to her texts. I didn't argue when she tried to bait me into late-night fights. I just watched, observed, pulled the strings while she danced in place, believing she still had time to win me back, to twist the story, to rebuild the illusion. But the foundation was already gone. The walls were collapsing. She was still inside, decorating. I wasn't even in the building anymore. I was outside, holding the blueprint and the matches. It all came crashing down at her vision board brunch, an event she had spent weeks organizing, hyping on social media as a manifestation celebration for her inner circle, an afternoon of mimosas, mindfulness, and dreams glued to poster boards like a kindergarten art project. The house was spotless. The playlist was a blend of acoustic covers and synthetic optimism, and she floated through the room in flowing white linen, smiling like a woman who still believed her hands could shape the universe. Her friends arrived, mostly other conscious creatives, the type who spoke in hashtags and drank moonwater. I was there too, invited, reluctantly, because optics still mattered to her. She introduced me like a prop, my grounding force, while touching my arm like we hadn't been sleeping in separate rooms for months. What she didn't know was that every woman in that room had already received a link that morning. A simple, private message. If she inspires you, you deserve to know the full picture. The folder spoke for itself: screenshots, videos, audio clips, timestamps, GPS logs, even the Airbnb guestbook. Nothing graphic. Nothing edited. Just the truth in unfiltered, unforgiving clarity. I watched as the energy shifted. Conversations faltered. Smiles thinned. One woman who had hugged her minutes earlier now wouldn't meet her eye. Another scrolled through her phone with trembling fingers, then slowly got up and left without a word. She noticed it, of course. The silence. The stares. The sudden frost in a room that had once been her kingdom. She laughed too loudly, made a joke about Mercury retrograde, then poured herself more champagne with shaking hands. Okay, she said, clapping once, voice brittle. Let's get started. Time to visualize our best selves. No one moved. Then her best friend, Jade, the one who had always defended her, always reposted her affirmations and stood by her side through every imaginary crisis, stood up slowly and said, "You should probably check your email." She froze. What? Jade didn't repeat herself. Just stared at her like she didn't recognize the woman in front of her anymore. My wife fumbled for her phone, opened it, and then the color drained from her face like blood down a sink. Her lips parted, eyes scanning, swiping, panicking. Who did this? She whispered. No one answered. She looked around like a trapped animal, spinning, her voice rising. This is a violation. This is slander. This is fake. None of this is real. But no one believed her. The evidence was too detailed, too methodical. She turned to me then, eyes wide, desperate. You did this. I didn't answer. I didn't move. I just stood by the doorway, arms folded, watching. That was all it took. Her face twisted in fury. You think this makes you powerful? You're sick. You're obsessed. You couldn't keep me, so now you're trying to destroy me. Her voice cracked on the last word. The mask was slipping, splintering, pieces falling around her feet. She turned to her friends again, now backing away like she was contagious. Please, she pleaded. You know me. You know me. I've been there for you. I've supported every one of you through your mess, and now you're going to act like I'm some monster because I made a mistake. Still, no one moved. Jade walked out. 2 others followed. Another checked her phone and mumbled something about needing to pick up her kid. The brunch died right there, suffocated by the weight of exposure. She dropped to her knees on the floor, phone in one hand, glass in the other, whispering, "This isn't happening. This isn't real." And still, I didn't say a word. I didn't need to. My presence was louder than any accusation. She looked up at me, tears now streaking her perfect makeup, mascara running like ink across a page of lies. "Say something," she begged. "Please. You can't just stand there." But I could. And I did. Because everything that needed to be said had already been documented, delivered, and believed. Her lover, by the way, had dumped her 2 hours earlier. His email reply was included in the folder. I had no idea. "Don't ever contact me again." She hadn't seen it yet. She would. Soon. She'd lose more than friends. Her job would follow, once the HR letter landed. Her family, now cold and silent, would no longer take her calls. She was watching the world she built collapse like a sandcastle under a rising tide, and all I did was watch. She saw it, finally. The truth. That I didn't care anymore. That I wasn't angry. I was done. And that quiet, detached indifference, that was the blade she couldn't stop bleeding from. It happened at her sister's engagement party, a backyard affair filled with catered hors d'oeuvres, rented fairy lights, and guests pretending they weren't tiptoeing around the scandal that had exploded days before. I hadn't planned on saying anything. I came to support the family, not stir the ashes. But she couldn't help herself. She approached me halfway through the evening, wine in hand, pretending to be calm, pretending that everyone's eyes weren't already tracking her every step. "We should talk," she hissed through a smile, like we were sharing a harmless secret and not standing on the edge of a minefield. "Now," I said, raising an eyebrow. "You really want to do this here?" "I need closure," she snapped, loud enough for the surrounding conversations to pause. That was the moment everything shifted. Her parents turned toward us, lips tight. My brother stepped forward, ready to intervene. Her best friend froze mid-bite, staring. The air got heavy, ripe with anticipation and dread. "Closure?" I repeated, scoffing. "You want closure? After dragging me through months of lies, half-truths, and back-alley hotel hookups, now you want to wrap it up with a neat little bow." "It wasn't like that," she shouted, her voice cracking. "You don't know what I was dealing with." "I know exactly what you were dealing with," I said. "You were bored. You thought you could juggle 2 lives without dropping either. You wanted safety and excitement at the same time, and you thought I'd be too blind to notice. You ignored me for years," she screamed. "All you cared about was work, structure, your routines. I felt like a ghost in this marriage." "You were a ghost," I fired back. "Not because of me, but because you spent every day pretending to be someone worth loving while planning your next betrayal." Gasps rippled through the crowd, whispers swirling like smoke. Her father took a step forward, but stopped when she turned on him. "You're all so quick to judge me," she barked, spinning in place. "Like none of you have ever made mistakes. Like you all didn't love the version of me that smiled and made everything look perfect. You lied to everyone," her mother said quietly, voice trembling with disappointment. "You lied to us. You said you were growing, healing, but you were hiding. Don't you dare," she snarled, pointing at her. "Don't you act like you were there when I needed you. None of you were. I was alone." "No," I said, stepping in again, voice calm but lethal. "You weren't alone. You were surrounded by people who loved you, who trusted you. You just preferred strangers who didn't know better. You manipulated me," she shouted, eyes wild. "You recorded me. You set traps. What kind of sick control freak does that? The kind who got tired of being treated like a doormat," I snapped. "The kind who wanted the truth because the woman he married died a long time ago and left a fraud in her place." Her hand twitched like she wanted to throw her wine glass. People were filming now, phones rising subtly, fingers hovering. "You were never strong enough for me," she spat. "You wanted a servant, not a wife. You wanted someone quiet, obedient, grateful. I wanted a partner," I said, my voice dropping, each word a hammer. "Not a parasite." The crowd recoiled audibly, someone muttering "damn" under their breath. Her face twisted in fury. "You think you're better than me?" she yelled, unhinged. "You think you're some kind of moral god because you caught me first? What about your flaws? What about everything you did wrong?" "I stayed loyal," I said. "I stayed honest. I stayed married. And the only thing I did wrong was giving you the benefit of the doubt for far too long. You made me hate myself," she screamed. "You made me feel like nothing I ever did was good enough. That's because nothing you did was real," I shot back. "You performed love. You mimicked loyalty. You sold everyone a version of yourself so filtered and hollow it collapsed the second someone held up a mirror. She stepped forward like she wanted to hit me, trembling, mascara streaked down her face, hands clenched into trembling fists. I loved you, she whispered, voice fractured, eyes glassy. I really did. I stared at her, unmoved. No, I said. You loved the idea of me. The stability, the status, the cover story. But the moment that version didn't serve your ego, you ripped it apart like everything else you claimed to care about. Silence fell like a dropped curtain. Her family stood frozen. My brother shook his head. Her friends stared at her like she was a stranger. She looked around, breathing hard, and saw it, her isolation, her exposure, her irrelevance. And then she broke. A choked sob escaped her lips, knees buckling as she dropped into a crouch, covering her face. No one moved to comfort her. No one reached out. I didn't walk away yet. I stood there, letting the weight of her consequences settle into her bones, watching as the reality she'd built on deception came down all around her in full view of everyone who used to believe in her. And that silence, that total collapse, was the only closure either of us would ever need.